hexagonal splotch. That's called the North American Wall because that dark blob looks like, with some imagination, a map of North America, and you can kind of see Baja California sticking down on the left side there and Alaska up to the northwest. And it's made up of a much darker, finer grained rock like this.
This dark granite is not just a map of North America. It's a window into the unique events that happened inside the Yosemite granite when it was buried deep beneath the earth.
And it's a younger body of granitic rock that filled a crack within the main body of El Capitan granite.
100 million years ago, the main body of granite cools and begins to harden beneath the earth. But then fresh, molten rock invades a crack and injects it with a blast of heat. The granite now takes 10 times longer to cool. Huge, robust crystals form and reseal the defective cracks. Time after time, fresh molten rock invades old, remelting and welding the Yosemite granite, creating gigantic shatterproof blocks which now tower thousands of feet into the air.
Given that these are obviously very strong rocks, it puts the Whitney-Muir controversy in an interesting light, because Whitney wanted the rocks to have broken and for the valley to have fallen down in between a couple of major cracks. Muir wanted the whole thing to be carved by glaciers, and both of those seem really difficult given how strong these rocks are, and yet behind me here is a 3,000-foot deep valley. Something carved it.
In the search to understand why Yosemite granite is so strong, scientists have found large granite crystals welded together to form a tough, flawless rock, and the North America Wall, evidence that Yosemite granite was reheated time after time, creating huge, faultless blocks. 100 million years ago, Yosemite's granite lies buried beneath a volcanic mountain range 2 miles high. Rivers slice into this soft volcanic roof, gouging and washing it away. Then 60 million years ago, when dinosaurs are no more, the featureless lump of Yosemite granite is finally exposed to the elements. But Yosemite's ultra-tough granite defies attack. For another 50 million years, it remains unscathed. It would take a catastrophic event to chisel the 3,000-foot canyon out of one of the toughest rocks on Earth. Yosemite's Merced River meanders in a 3,000-foot canyon. But 250 million years ago, no vast canyon stood here. Yosemite is a flat coastal plain. It is blasted by volcanoes, and its granite is buried beneath 2 miles of volcanic rock. When the Yosemite granite is finally exposed, it is a shallow, run-of-the-mill river valley. For a staggering 50 million years, it defies the destructive powers of erosion. If scientists were going to solve the mystery of how Yosemite Valley formed, they'd have to investigate the pivotal moment 7 million years ago, when a 3,000-foot canyon was suddenly chiseled into the granite, one of the toughest rocks on Earth. A clue to what almighty force overpowered the Yosemite granite lies high up on the exposed cliffs. Strange, deep cracks running for hundreds of feet through the rock.
Yosemite's granites are strong, but they're not always strong. I'm standing on a fin of rock between 2 deep fissures. These cracks run right across the Yosemite landscape, and they clearly formed after the granite formed. And if I look at their orientation, they all go to the northeast.
Strangely, Yosemite Valley is also oriented along the same northeast-southwesterly direction. Perhaps these cracks were the remnants of a cataclysmic rock-splitting event, as Josiah Whitney had predicted. A respected Yale-educated scientist, he passionately believed titanic forces beneath Yosemite had pulled the land apart, causing it to collapse along gigantic fault line cracks. Could it be that the argument was swinging in the bombastic Whitney's favor, and Muir's glacial theory was the rambling of an ignorant shepherd after all? Scientists searching for the answers as to how these giant cracks formed used modern technology to take a closer look at the ground beneath the Sierra Nevada. They did not find evidence of Whitney's cataclysmic rifting valley, but discovered a catastrophic event which had ramifications on a far greater scale. Seismic evidence has revealed that the Earth's crust is made of layers. The lighter outer shell forms the land, but fastened beneath is a dense anchor of sturdy rock. And beneath the Sierra Nevada, scientists discovered something extraordinary. A huge section of this lower crust, 200 miles long and 40 miles wide, is missing.
This model represents the Sierra Nevada as it looked 10 million years ago. So the top here represents the mountain range. The bottom there, it represents the lower crust. Sometime in the past 10 million years, part of that lower crust disconnected from the mountain range and dropped away. The end result is that there was uplift of the Sierra Nevada because they were being held down by those dense rocks. So there was uplift of the Sierra Nevada, but because most of the route fell away to the east, the whole mountain range, rather than bobbing straight up, tilted to the west.
7 million years ago, a huge chunk of the lower crust suddenly drops away. The entire mountain chain snaps along its spine and tilts upward. Finally, here is a force capable of overcoming Yosemite's ultra-tough granite. As it snaps, the enormous pressure cracks the solid granite along the entire length of the mountain range. But it was a mystery how these cracks could give rise to a 3,000-foot deep canyon. Scientists realized some other force must have attacked the weakened, vulnerable granite. The hunt was on for an accomplice. And 5 miles downstream of Yosemite, at El Portal, they find it. Rapids. Here, Yosemite's meandering Merced River has transformed into a raging torrent. At times, 1,000 cubic feet of water gush through this narrow gorge every second, creating treacherous waves and turbulent eddies.
So this is the Merced River about 5 miles downstream of Yosemite Valley. It's extremely powerful. It's a series of rapids and cascades over these boulders, and there's a lot of energy being expended by this river right now.
Scientists realized this ferocious force, combined with the rock-weakening cracks, even had the power to cut into Yosemite's granite.
The erosion of the river is focused right along the riverbed, and so it will cut down like a saw blade into the rock about the width of the river. So as it does that, it will come down and steepen the valley walls. Those walls will become unstable, and there'll be landslides into the river. The river will wash away the material, and you'll be back to that V shape.
Scientists realized if the Merced River created this deep V-shaped canyon, then it could also have cut a deep Yosemite Valley. 7 million years ago, as the Sierra Nevada tilts upwards, the mountain slope gets 3 times steeper, and the western flowing Merced River surges with a torrent of water. Like a saw blade, it zigzags along the path of weakened, cracked granite. In less than 5 million years, it cuts a 3,000-foot V-shaped canyon, running straight through the heart of Yosemite. Scientists investigating how Yosemite's deep canyon formed have discovered strange cracks in the rock, proof that the uplifting Sierra Nevada weakened the granite. And rapids downstream, evidence that the Merced River cut a deep V-shaped Yosemite canyon. But one part of the riddle remained unsolved. Yosemite's unique box-like shape. Some other extraordinary force had caused the canyon walls to collapse and the valley floor to flatten. The controversy about how this strange canyon formed raged on. Yosemite has had a turbulent past. 200 million years ago, its coastal plain is shattered by volcanoes. And then, 7 million years ago, the Merced River suddenly carves a deep V-shaped Yosemite Valley. For the next 4 million years, the river runs in this narrow canyon. But then, Yosemite is radically transformed again.
About 2.5 million years ago, when our ancestors were beginning to evolve in Africa, the V-shaped valley that was here began to evolve into the present valley floor, which is flat and is bounded by these vertical sheer rock walls on its side.
It was during this second extraordinary stage of cliff formation that the most iconic rock in America formed, Half Dome. This natural wonder's unique shape has intrigued people for centuries. Its enormous granite dome is over 3 billion cubic feet in size, as large as 1,000 football stadiums. And its striking northwest face is a 2,000-foot vertical drop. In 1870, amateur geologist John Muir had a radical theory about how Half Dome and Yosemite's other vast cliffs formed. He believed that thousands of years ago, the Earth's temperature had plummeted and the valley had been filled with ice.
You know, one thing that's important to keep in mind about John Muir, he didn't come up with this idea overnight. He was trekking, hiking, walking, going up to the tops of mountains. And the entire time he was doing this, he was listening, he was seeing, he was feeling, he was touching. And so he was slowly, letter by letter, word by word, learning the language of Yosemite.
Muir knew from research in the European Alps that glaciers were capable of gouging out solid rock. As these great rivers of ice flow downhill, they press down on the canyon walls with a weight equal to 200 trucks per square yard, ripping out chunks of rock and causing the valley walls to get steeper.
In general, glaciers transform a V-shaped valley that we see as characteristic of a river into a U-shaped valley by focusing their erosion on the valley walls rather than on the valley bottom, until it has reached this U shape, at which point it can then continue to erode as that U shape.
Muir knew that as a glacier flows, it grinds and polishes the bedrock with rough shards of rock lodged at its base. As they melt and disappear, glaciers leave behind U-shaped valleys and distinctive scratch marks. Muir proposed that giant rivers of ice also once flowed through Yosemite Valley. He hunted high and low for evidence of glacial scratch marks and eventually found a small 20-foot square patch of rock 30 feet from the valley floor.
The granite has scratches on its surface. Each one of these scratches is associated with a rock embedded in the soul of a glacier. I can imagine Muir claiming that this is irrefutable evidence of glacial occupation of the valley floor.
But if glaciers plowed down the valley, why weren't there millions of scratch marks on the cliffs? If Muir was correct, this is a picture of what happened. 2.5 million years ago, the temperature plummets. Yosemite Valley fills to the brim with a gigantic glacier. Only the tallest mountains peak above the sea of ice. For thousands of years, the glacier grinds away at the granite walls, scratching the cliffs and undercutting a peak that will become Half Dome. When it retreats, the glacier leaves precarious slabs of overhanging rock. The unstable rock face crashes to the valley floor,